What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Friday afternoon, and we have breaking news. Brock Purdy, as I first saw it from Adam Schefter, also goes by Shefty, signed a massive contract extension worth $265 million. Now, it's the NFL, so you got to break down some of the numbers. Rap Sheet just tweeted that the deal includes $53 million per year, $181 million in guarantees, and $55 million in new money average over the first 3 years. Now, obviously, Purdy, one of the lower paid players in the NFL, given that he was the last pick in the 7th round, gets a massive, massive extension. Now, first, we got to put this in context. I think his people would say we took a discount. I mean, a year ago, Trevor Lawrence, whose resume does not stack up against Brock Purdy, and if Trevor Lawrence had been a 5th round pick, not the number 1 overall pick, he never would have got as much as he got. Got $200 million in guarantees. So Brock Purdy takes $20 million less than him. Jordan Love, who had, excelled in 8 games. Now the 8 games looked awesome. Got $160 million last summer in guarantees. Tua got 167. Jalen Hurts got 179. So it's basically very similar to Hurts' contract in guarantees. But the reality is, when you're a starting quarterback, and clearly the 49ers have now tied their fortunes to Kyle and Brock. That is the combination. Kyle Shanahan, at one point in time, it looked like Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be his guy. That got derailed. Trey Lance, historic disaster, and they kind of fell into this. And now these two guys are tied at the hip. Kyle's one of the highest paid coaches in the league. Brock Purdy's, a franchise quarterback, based on contract. And listen, beside the last stretch of last season, has played at a really, really high level. And I think big picture, this is the ultimate NFL story. I mean, we spend so much time, and I'm guilty about this, hyping up and just discussing ad nauseum the guys that are going to get picked really high in the draft. We have a long history, quarterback or not. More than half, or right around half, the first rounders are considered non-second contract guys. And now that we have this new CBA where you get a 5th-year contract, about 48 to 50% of the guys on a yearly basis do not get their 5th-year option picked up. So there is no disputing that's a disaster, right? When you have a first-round pick and you don't give a guy a second contract. And the meat and, so many guys throughout the league, like the heart of most teams, are not just first-rounders. It's guys from 2nd to 7th rounders to undrafted free agents. And obviously Tom Brady's story is relatively unprecedented, given that he was picked 199 and went on to win 7 Super Bowls and become the best player in the history of the league. But last time I checked, he passed Joe Montana, who was a 3rd-round pick. And Brock Purdy speaks to the 49ers didn't just draft Trey Lance number 3. They moved heaven and earth to get him. They traded 3 first-round picks to move up for the rights to draft him. And a year later, Brock Purdy is way better. And Trey Lance get hurt, and the 49ers never look back, and they ship him out of town. And he speaks to what's with the draft that just happened, regardless where you're picked. Whether you're the number 1 pick like Cam Ward or you're drafted in the 5th round of Shedeur Sanders. Once camp starts and once preseason game starts, injuries happen, a lot of these guys control their own destiny. And no one in a million years, I was going to these training camps when Brock Purdy got drafted. He was an afterthought. No one thought twice, like, who's this guy? Made some plays in training camp. They kept him around. Couple injuries later, he's starting in playoff games. Couple years later, he's signing a contract for $180 million guaranteed. Think about that. Like that doesn't happen in these other sports. Guys come out of nowhere. Now, Brock Purdy, not out of nowhere, was a really, really high-level player in college. But the NFL, every team was passing on him over and over and over, including the 49ers. And it's always funny to me, like, this was our guy. It's like, well, you could have drafted him like the 3rd round if you really loved him. And that's the crazy part about football. No one really knows. We're all taking educated guesses. Even Kyle Shanahan, not in a million years, several years ago, would have thought that this guy would be this good. And listen, we can nitpick till we're blue in the face. Is this too much money? Did Brock Purdy actually take a discount? Is this crazy to do? They have told you for years now. I mean, a solid 18 months. They don't like Brock Purdy. They love Brock Purdy. I thought it was a little alarming to stretch the last 3 or 4 games of the season. I thought he didn't play that well. And at every turn, Kyle Shanahan defended him. So it was clear, like everyone's like, they shouldn't do it. They don't need to pay him. Like, play it out. Like, they were never going to do that. Kyle Shanahan, all his chips were in the middle of the table on this player. And now they've retooled this roster. The schedule this year is a joke. I mean, it truly is. If you have one of the higher paid quarterbacks and one of the higher paid coaches, who we all agree is a good coach, and definitely one of the highest paid defensive coordinators in Robert Saleh, like it's been said now since the schedule came out, even though we knew their opponents and we knew the schedule was a joke, but now that you see it on paper, you're like, anything less than 10 wins is a disaster. But everyone acknowledges that. Like, there is not a 49er fan that looks at this schedule and goes, whether it's Ricky Pearsall, Debo Samuel, I don't care who's in the game. These games need to be won. Like, no one's expecting 13, 14, 15 wins like years past. But when you're all in on a quarterback and you have a franchise quarterback and a franchise coach, you got to win double-digit games when you have the easiest schedule on paper in the NFL. And I believe they will, because, like, I'm not pivoting. One of my biggest regrets last year was, like, Chargers are going to make the playoffs. They're not talented enough. It's a coaching league. This isn't the NBA where you have to have a star to even have a chance. You can have random guys and win a bunch of games. Coaching can overcome. You can outthink, outsmart, outscheme teams. And you give me Kyle Shanahan, you give me Robert Saleh, you give me a year of a healthy Brock Purdy. And I mean, obviously, they need guys that they've drafted to come through over the last couple of years. But I think the 49ers have proven, like, they've struggled sometimes drafting high, but they've drafted really, really well in the mid to late rounds. And I expect them to be good. Now, I also don't expect, and here's the thing, like, they gave him a lot of money, but Brock Purdy is not Joe Burrow. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's not on that level. And they're not asking him to be. Do you know who else isn't really on that level? Jared Goff and Jalen Hurts. Now, like Brock a couple years ago, they play on loaded teams, and they play at a really, really high level. So they're going to need some in between of that. Like, obviously, their team is not as talented as the Eagles and the Lions on offense. That's just a fact. But Brock has proven to be a playmaker. Kyle's proven to be a great schematic coach. And Christian McCaffrey, you got to keep your fingers crossed, comes back full health, ready to rock and roll. And they can overcome an organization that just doesn't value offensive line that much because they think they can scheme around it. And when Trent Williams has been healthy, it hasn't been an issue. When he's gone, it's kind of unraveled. Now, good thing for them is Brock is a good athlete, and he can scramble around and make plays. They're going to need a lot out of Ricky Pearsall. They just gave George Kittle a huge contract. Brandon Ayuk, I mean, they're paying him a shitload of money. They're going to need him to come back and be healthy. But I do think it's fair. Like, the expectations are still high for this team. It's no longer like last year's Super Bowl or bust. But I think it's more than fair once you start paying these prices and you go all in on a quarterback. It's playoffs or bust. And I just think that's just where they're at. And the other thing is, I'm not, a lot of people are going to nitpick. This is crazy money. This is too much. They've told you forever they were going to do this. They were never going to draft another quarterback. They were never going to play this out. They were putting all their chips into Brock Purdy because they believe in him. And listen, there is more. Drew Brees was never as talented as Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't as good as Peyton Manning. But, like, he could outthink you. And he really benefited from playing with a great offensive coach. Like, it's not often that you get, like, the ultimate talent and the ultimate coach. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. Like, that doesn't happen that often. Look back at who coached Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was essentially the offensive coordinator the majority of his career. A lot of times it's this great combination of, like, who's drafting your players, who's building your team, who's calling the plays. Like, Jalen Hurts looked a lot better with Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore than he did 2 years ago. Brian Johnson and whatever the hell was going on there offensively, right? So whoever's calling the plays matters. And you know, as long as Brock Purdy's playing quarterback, that Kyle Shanahan's going to be there. And that he thrives in this scheme that demands a lot of you. And they've proven, and they've played in a lot of big games. And he has a lot of experience. But the pressure is amped up. I also think the division is going to be good. Like Seattle has a solid roster. I think Arizona is vastly improved. But like Sam Darnold was really good for the Vikings, who have the best wide receiver in the league and a pretty dynamic offensive, group of weapons, right? Like, is it going to be look the same in Seattle? Time will tell, right? Arizona, interesting squad, play really hard. Kyler is a tough player to play on an individual game basis, but I ain't picking them to make the playoffs. So obviously the 49ers have to just try to keep up with the Rams, who are really good. And most people are going to pick them to win the division, and rightfully so. But I don't see why the 49ers can't not only compete, but win a wild card. And if 10-7 doesn't get you a wild card spot, like I don't think that's a disaster. But I think 10-7 now for 2025 is the minimum expectation to have success. Anything under that, given like if you factor in how much you're paying the quarterback, how much you're paying your head coach, and then if your head coach is the offensive coordinator, how much you're paying the defensive coordinator, the 49ers have to be near the top. I would imagine the Chiefs are at the top. Andy Reid, Spags, Mahomes. There can't be many coordinator, quarterback combinations that are making more than this. And when you pay a premium, you expect a premium, right? Like I pay Steph Curry $50 million a year, I get good ROI, right? I give Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson a ton of money, I get great ROI. The reason the Browns are a fucking disaster is because they gave him $230 million and he is objectively one of the worst quarterbacks statistically we've ever seen. It is, and the eye test is even worse. So it's all about the ROI on your investment. The 49ers go in on Brock Purdy, need 30 touchdowns in some big wins and big moments. Well, I know there are going to be some struggles. Like the expectation if you get into a weather game, not ideal. The 49ers don't play in a lot of weather games though, right? So the nitpicks that we have for him, it's like, yeah, he's not great in the rain. Yeah, they play in Levi Stadium, right? The Rams, the Cardinals, dome teams. Seattle's the one potential. They open up against them. So it's like, you got to factor all that in. The biggest names, the brightest stage. Championship level swings are lighting up Charlotte this week, and DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered for every thrill and moment. From the first tee shot to the Sunday's final putt, experience every shot like never before. You can live bet, you can play props, and so much more. New to golf betting? Don't worry, I got you covered. You're in good company with DraftKings Sportsbook. Kick things off with a simple pick, like choosing who you think will win. Here's the thing. Lines and odds are subject to change. But I love Bryson DeChambeau to win this tournament. Plus 950. Other good bets that I like. Xander Schauffele to top 10. Plus 180. Justin Thomas to top 10. Plus 175. And if you want a little bit of a flyer, a little bit of a long shot, I can give you Gary Woodland to top 20 at plus 450. And here's the big win for new users. Bet just $5 and score 200 in bonus bets instantly. I think the pressure now is on the organization to do right by him. And when you look at the conference, I think the bar has been set obviously by the Eagles, the Rams, the Lions. They've done a really, really good job of building around the quarterback and getting them high-end players and doubling down on it. I mean, Howie has set the bar. And I think if you want to nitpick the 49ers, which is more than fair, the offensive line, like it's not acceptable. It really isn't. Not when the team that just won the Super Bowl in your conference that you played a couple years ago in the conference title pushes all their chips in the middle of the table around their star quarterback on the offensive line. And it's been the biggest nitpick of the Kyle Shanahan era. It's like, if it wasn't for Trent Williams basically saying, I'm only playing there, like, what would they even be doing? Who'd they be playing at left tackle, like me or you? So fascinated to watch this play out. This has always been inevitable, really, for, I think, the last 18 months. They were talking about it before last season, how they were already budgeting for this. We just didn't know the number. If I would have guessed, if you would have said he signed today, how much guaranteed money would he have signed for? I would have guessed 165. So when I see 180, like, I think the 49ers kind of took care of him. I think they did. And I think he and his representation could say, I think we took a little discount, based on what some of these other cats have done and what they've been paid. It's like, you could argue we took a discount. So I also always believe there are certain franchises, Dak Prescott is one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. It's like, Dak, do you know how much money you make off the field because you're the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys? You're not Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson where you can overcome talent deficiencies around you. So, like, would it have been in your best interest to take a little haircut? Again, I'm not talking from 100 grand to 75 grand. We're talking instead of $230 million guaranteed, maybe go 190 so they can load up the roster a little bit. Maybe you don't trust Jerry. I don't know. But I think you could, in a weird way, commend Purdy and his camp for giving the 49ers, like, making this kind of easy. And, I think the 49ers the last couple years have seen, I mean, the Brandon Ayuk thing, let's face it, was an embarrassment. The Bosa thing, don't totally blame him. He's an elite. The Ayuk thing, they clearly regretted from the moment they signed it, and then he got injured, and they were trying to trade him this year, but no one wants to trade for a guy with an injured knee. I do believe they didn't want to go through any of this stuff. They've had holdouts back to back to back years, right? From Trent Williams to Ayuk to Bosa to Debo. They weren't going to do that. They have too many young, impressionable guys. The schedule's too fucking easy to be going back and forth with. I mean, last year, the story of training camp was like Brandon Ayuk just standing there watching and, begging for a trade and then them getting trade offers and then him refusing. Like that was something, that was an embarrassing moment for the franchise. And this whole contract negotiation, I would imagine a lot of the talk was, we're not having any of that. And luckily, like, I don't think Brock was going to do hold ins or like hug John Lynch for the cameras and just make things weird. But the story just ends. And I think anytime that you can just end a story and just move forward, like, this is our guy. And intangibles matter a lot at quarterback. I mean, when you look at the best quarterbacks in the league, all their intangibles are off the charts. And that's one thing that you can't overcome. Like, I just don't think in this day and age, you're going to have high end quarterbacks that are slappies. I mean, just go through the list. Mahomes, elite character, beloved in the locker room by the team, by the teammates, by the city. I mean, just great dude. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, like, these guys are super, super high. Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts. If anything, it's like Jalen smile, but he's just too focused. I mean, there are just not many slappies right now playing at a high level. I mean, Baker turned his career around. You watch him talk, you're like, what a high level dude. And maturity is put at a premium. I mean, Dak Prescott, you could argue he's been overpaid, but like, character, anything off the field question marks don't exist. We have one example in recent memory. And we all laugh at it with the Cleveland Browns. So you do, like, the bar is set really high for maturity and character and kind of that world for quarterback. And Brock Purdy checks all those boxes. And the 49ers value that really, really highly. And I think playing for Kyle Shanahan, you could say that he overvalues that sometimes. And Brock Purdy has that in spades. And I think, once upon a time, I thought that Baker Mayfield, his version of a player, was going to be Drew Brees. You watch him play, he's a much different player, much stronger arm, actually much more athletic. I do think in a perfect world, you know, Purdy kind of becomes that. The younger version, much very accurate, very efficient. He can be explosive at times. Now he's athletic too, definitely more athletic than I think most people thought. There were times last year. Now they were pressing. They had a bunch of injuries where he turned the ball over. But I think when he's playing well, he doesn't put the ball in harm's way, or at least they can balance that a little bit. And it's something that, like, he does bring to the table, and it goes back to college. He's a little bit of a gunslinger, which I kind of like in my quarterback. I don't want a guy who refuses to push the envelope. You just got to pick your spots. I mean, in a tie game in the fourth quarter, it's like, when you don't have a huge arm, you got to be careful about putting the ball into harm's way. But yeah, man, massive, massive day for the 49ers, who have spent a lot of money over the last several years. And I know they cut a bunch of money from the books over the course of, I don't know, the last couple months, but they still have a lot of high price guys. I mean, Kittle makes a ton, Trent Williams makes a ton, Christian McCaffrey makes a ton, Fred Warner makes a ton, Nick Bosa is one of the highest paid players in the league. Ayuk makes a shitload. I mean, you won't find many guys in the history of the league catching 74 balls that make $28 million a year. So the 49ers still have a high price team. I think we talk about them like the little engine that could. It's like, I think Jed York would be like, "Have you see who we're paying?" Like, we've invested a lot of money here. They gave Lenore a big contract extension last year. They just Michael Williams. They just drafted him 11th overall. The expectations for him to be a high end player are really, really high. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm actually bullish on the 49ers this year. Like I would lean they win 10 plus games more than they like seven or lower. Like last year was they couldn't have had more injuries. McCaffrey was basically just MIA beside a game or two, and then he hurt his knee when he came back. Now I don't feel great like Christian McCaffrey's going to play 17 games, but by all accounts he's healthy. And to me, he makes like Jalen Hurts looked a lot better when he had Saquon Barkley. Brock Purdy, like this isn't Mahomes, right? This isn't Lamar, where it's like no matter what, I can just pull shit out of my ass and I can make plays. Like I need a little help here. Jared Goff looks a lot better with Laporta, Gibbs, and St. Brown, right? And Jamison Williams going 90 miles an hour down the sideline, doing some crazy stuff every once in a while. So I think Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, getting your, Ayuk back with Pearsall, you just feel a lot better about the operation because, listen, Kyle can drive anyone that follows this team as closely as people like me do a little nuts. But there is no disputing he's one of the better coaches, and his resume speaks for it. He's won a ton of big games. They value defense. The other thing I think can help Purdy out, look at Jalen Hurts, having a good defense and getting Robert Saleh back. This defense, the Wilkes thing was just off. He wasn't terrible, but for whatever reason, Fred Warner and Bosa didn't like him. And last year, it was just like, this isn't good enough. And you get Robert Saleh back. He's going to have to make some random guys that we don't know that well achieve kind of, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but become players. If their defense is good, it's going to make Brock Purdy look a lot better, right? So I think the 49ers, if I'm a 49er fan, I'm pretty optimistic here. We got this Purdy thing settled, and it's just time to roll. It's just time to roll. It's time to win some fucking games. Like, you don't get to play the Saints and the Titans and the Jags, and I don't even care if there's some random guys on the field. The expectation's got to be to win. You know, I mean, this is no one's asking you to be the number one seed this year, but if you can't compete for the seventh or sixth, we got problems. And my expectation is they will. And I think they have a very good chance based on the schedule. I'm picking them to be a wild card team unless they have some catastrophic injury in training camp. But as we sit here right now, I think they, for the first time since 2019, they get to fly a little under the radar. And everyone's going to be picking against them. They get to be a little bit of like everyone, the little engine that could. And they've been kind of the person that everyone's been gunning for, and rightfully so. They've been in a bunch of NFC Championship games. They've been to a couple Super Bowls. And even when they were shitty last year, like it's still a big game on the schedule. This year, you get to just ease into the schedule a little bit. And I'll go 10-7 right now.